today. Welcome to the final panel of MEGAPHONO Virtual. Thank you so much for being here. We've all learned so much already and are excited to learn so much today from our fantastic panelists and our moderator, LYNN SAXBERG. So let me hand it over to you, LYNN, and you can jump right in.
Great, thanks, Brody. Hello, everyone. See some familiar names here today. Welcome to the final afternoon of MEGAPHONO. My name's LYNN SAXBERG, and I'm in Ottawa. Grateful to be on the beautiful unceded land of the Algonquin Nation. I'm going to start by talking a bit about my career, if you don't mind, because it kind of reflects the changes that have been happening in the music industry. I always say the music industry and the newspaper industry have kind of gone in decline at synchronicity over the last 20 or more years while I've been working in both industries. These days, I'm a general arts reporter at the Ottawa Citizen newspaper and the Postmedia chain of papers across Canada, which means the stories I write have the possibility of running in papers across the country. I write about all forms of artistic expression in Ottawa, from book publishing to film festivals to visual art and photography, and pretty much anything that's happening in Ottawa. But for the first 20 years at the paper, I mostly wrote about music. In fact, when I started in the early 90s, I was we had a whole stable of freelancers writing about music. We had a country music writer, we had a local clubs person, we had a jazz writer, a blues writer. We even, in the department, we even had like a visual arts writer, a movie critic, a comedy writer, a fashion writer, and more. So we've gone from a department that pretty much filled a table of like 24 people at our Christmas lunches to a department of 2 reporters, so me and Peter Hum. Newspapers were thriving then, and Ottawa became more of a destination for big name tours, and festivals expanded. So there was a need for someone on staff to interview artists and review shows. So that sort of became my specialty. In those days, major labels used to bring artists to a city like Ottawa, sort of off the beaten track a bit, for a day, fly them in for a day to do interviews and radio spots. And there were very, very few local artists that I would have encountered in that process. Back then, to get anywhere in the music industry, you needed a major label behind you, which meant you had to go to Toronto or New York or LA, where the head offices are, and hope to get in front of the A&R scouts. If they liked you, they set you up with a producer in a studio, maybe some co-writers, and you might get the chance to make a record eventually. The labels distributed the music, manufactured it, serviced it to radio, and provided tour support. Record deals were often for multiple albums, like up to 7 albums sometimes, and you got time to develop your craft. Although it was a long shot for an act in the Ottawa area to make it to the big time, like go on an arena tour and stuff, there were a couple of big label stories back then. So Alanis Morissette, of course, being #1 biggest, and a little band called Barstool Prophets got signed for a while back there too, back then. But it was a long shot. At some point in the early 90s, I pitched a story for the paper on the success of the DIY scene in Ottawa. You know, I could see that there were more independent acts, they were making their own music, they were getting out there and touring across the country on their own. And I remember my editors being pretty surprised about this. So I learned a lot about the music industry in those very early days just by covering things like that. Nowadays, things are changing so quickly. Oh yeah, the story that I wrote, I just plucked the top of it. This was from 1993, I think. Here's what I started with. A fresh crop of young independent bands is starting to give a new dimension to Ottawa's cultural composition In some circles, it's not the National Arts Centre that comes to mind when you mention the city's arts community, but groups with bizarre names like Furnace Base, Fun for Malachi, or Tongues and Bones. So back then as well, it seemed like there were lots of clubs to play in. There were studios where, at first it was, the studios existed basically to service the radio industry. So you would get to record music late at night after they're doing all their jingles and stuff. And there were big opportunities for getting a bigger crowd and getting an all ages crowd. Tulip Fest, there was a Furnace Fest for a few years there. Always a struggle to get commercial radio play, but lucky that we have CKCU and CHUO for so many years, who have been very supportive of the independent music scene. Now I mentioned Alanis, and her story is a little bit of an anomaly in Ottawa because she wasn't really nurtured as an artist while she lived here. She had her bubblegum pop music, and then she went away for a while and she found her voice, and she worked with another a big time producer in LA, and came back with this new sounds. And I remember that when the record company was servicing media with her new music, it was a very unusual way that they did it. They brought us into a room. We sort of booked the boardroom at the paper, and brought a couple of writers in. They had the local rep, Mary, and probably one of her bosses, and they played this artist's music and wouldn't tell us who it was. And we're going, who is that? That sounds really familiar, because they knew that music critics would turn up their noses at someone like Alanis right off the bat. Probably wouldn't even listen to her because of the bubblegum type dance pop that she was known for having produced originally. So that was a huge eye opener, just about coming in with biases listening to music, and to remove that was a really interesting idea. I'm not sure whose idea it was, but of course, the rest is history. It went on to become one of the biggest. Jagged Little Pill became one of the biggest selling records in music history. Things are pretty different now in the music scene. We have a much better infrastructure thanks to things like Megaphono and OMIC, the Ottawa Music Industry Coalition. We have managers and music that I remember in that anecdote. So we get to the topic of the discussion today. How do you break out of Ottawa now? There are some recent success stories that we've seen in quite recent in the last year. Tiags figured out TikTok. 404 Vincent got added to, I think, a Fortnite playlist that really helped with him getting his music out there. Today, we're going to talk about some other ways to carve out a career in the music business from Ottawa. And I'm honored to be joined by Kevin Bourne, Nathan Gravelle, and Hannah Judge, who's also known as fanclubwallet. Hello, people. And so I think we'll start by perhaps each of you. I'd like to start with Hannah, if that's okay, because you're an artist that I had never heard of before Megaphono. And I understand you've already got a manager and you're well on your way. And I have listened to your music and it's great. And I'm curious to hear your story. How did you get to the point? It sounds like music you may have written in your bedroom. How did you get from that point to this point, being part of the Ottawa music industry?
Awesome. Well, nice to meet you. Happy to be here. Yeah, I'm Hannah Judge. Fanclubwallet is my musical project. It started about a year ago, I guess. I put out my first song on April Fools because I thought that that would be kind of funny. But it's been pretty much like entirely a project that's existed within the pandemic, which has been really interesting because I, like, part of this was so used to, you know, like going out to shows and meeting people and like making connections, and suddenly everything is like forced to be online. So you kind of have to navigate like the online world, which I feel like I've kind of grown up being on the computer all the time. So I wasn't like, oh no, what do I do now? But I put out my first song, which was a cover of a Talking Heads song. And I put it on Reddit because I was like, there's a really great like music community on Reddit on like r/listen to this and like r/indie heads. And I just put it on Reddit and I thought, you know, maybe some people will hear it and that would be great. And it got like a ton of upvotes and a ton of comments. People being like, put this on Spotify, like when's there going to be more, put this on Spotify. So I made sure that with my next single to come back to that thread and remind people like, hey, I've got like a, you know, my first actual single as fanclubwallet that's not a cover is coming out like on this day. Here's where you can pre-save it. And it kind of all just like, it took off from there, really.
Yeah, so you sort of skipped the whole local scene, really.
Yeah, it's very strange because I remember like starting the project, I was like, I'm so excited, like finally. I'd always been like, I worked as like a tour photographer and taking photos of local bands, and I worked in Montreal at a music venue, and I worked with my friend David Sclubel, who did this thing called Local Ottawa Live, where he showcased local bands and do interviews with them. And so when I started the project, I was like, wow, this will be great. Like all the bands I've met, all the people I've become friends with, I'll get to finally play a show and have them all come out. But that hasn't happened yet.
Great, thanks. That's a luck is often a part of it too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Nathan, let's move to you. I understand you are managing Twotiime, who is an up and coming young lad from Richie,
yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Street in Ottawa, yes.
Yeah. So tell us about how you connected with him and what is he your first management client?
He's my first official artist, but not my first management, no.
Okay. What drew you to him? Why did you want to work with him in this business capacity?
So I'll start out by saying hello to everybody on the panel. Thank you for having me as well. I was a radio host. To start off, I was a radio host for 5 years at CHUO. I was running the BRL show alongside DJ Alive. You know, I'm more into, you know, scouting and, you know, into the newer content, emerging artists lane. So I came across Twotiime probably within my 4th year. You know, a few people from the neighborhood. But, you know, on the side of things, me and Twotiime are actually from the same neighborhood and the same high school. I'm just a generation higher than him. So, you know, people through the neighborhood connected us, and you know, I was just showing me some records over the email, just started like that. And, you know, I played one of his songs on the radio show, I believe, when he first released his single Hood Cry, which is one of his notable records today. Ever since then, I was scouting him. I was in and out of Toronto and Vancouver. At the time, I was part of Blue Feather Records. I was doing management for Toronto artist Pressa. Pressa is now signed to Sony Records and living in LA and, you know, living his career out. So after that happened, I'd come back to Ottawa, and me and DJ Alive had spoken, and it was about time to put down our radio show. And it's been 5 years and try to move on to some different ventures. And that's when I knew I wanted to, you know, take a little bit of a break from radio and use my network, use a lot of my resources, use what I've learned over the years, you know, with radio, with the network, with Pressa, and try to utilize that towards my own artists. You know, so I got closer with Twotiime and started getting him into the studio, you know, just started really showing them what I could do. And then it just, you know, was magic from there.
Great. Cap City Hip Hop, is that your baby too?
Yeah, Cap City Hip Hop is my company. We launched that in 2012. So it's been about 10 years now. And
Okay.
yeah.
What is that exactly? Is that like your production company or management company?
So Cap City Hip Hop is an urban media website. We showcase all the local talent across the city. We had a website platform up from 2012 to 2016 when I met Pressa and I started going on tour and across the country. It was kind of hard to maintain. So I put down the website, but I kept the platform up, and the platform, you know, we're still covering, you know, social media, local content on social media, creating content. We are covering Blues Fest. You know, we've covered them for about 6 years, and, you know, still involving in the community, throwing shows and stuff like that. But yeah, my main goal right now is to get the website back up, but we're still active. We're still promoting. You can follow us online. We just recently teamed up with Stingray Music Canada as well. And we created a brand new playlist of 150 songs. And yeah, we're putting on a lot of the, you know, emerging and veterans from Ottawa right now. So
is Hood Cry on it?
Hood Cry is on it, yes.
Of course, yes. So kind of what I'm hearing you say here is that you wanted to work with Twotiime because of that song.
Not for most of the song. It was actually, you know, I stepped outside the box, you know, and was working with a Toronto artist, you know, and just at the time back when Pressa was coming out with his first song, you know, around like 2016, you know, Ottawa was still building. There was a lot of artists, you know, that were coming out, and, you know, it was hard to say, you know, which artists were gonna, you know, continue on that same path, or, you know, when music was still evolving. So, you know, I kind of broke out myself into Toronto. I was writing for Hip Hop Canada as well. I was doing blog work for them. So I started writing for Pressa, and that's how, you know, we became more tighter, and I became more of, you know, part of the management and not so just publicist. And from that, you know, I ended up doing a Vice documentary with Pressa. I ended up getting networking and, you know, getting connections with XXL, The Source, The Fader magazine, you know, starting to learn a little bit more aspects of, you know, music publicist lane and stuff like that. So, you know, things were opening up, and, you know, I had to, you know, Ottawa's my hometown. I didn't want to leave here. I didn't really want to move to Toronto. I didn't really want to move to Vancouver. So taking these little trips in and out the city just to, you know, open my brain up and meet new people were really good. And I believe, you know, just like Hannah said, some of it was luck as well, you know, being able to write for Hip Hop Canada and Pressa and his brother and you know, Toronto artists, and for them to notice my writing was, you know, exceptionally, you know, I was happy, and I was being able to break into a new market. So
yeah, no, that's a really valuable skill. And I could have said too in my intro that we had writers for all genres of music, but not hip hop. And that was not for lack of looking. The way they found writers back then was basically going to a Carleton journalism class and say, who likes, you know, heavy metal, who likes hip hop, and but we never really found a good, consistent hip hop writer. So that's a really good skill to have. And our next panelist, Kevin Bourne, also has that ability to write about music of all types. How are you doing, Kevin?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Good. Thanks for being here. So you have discovered a lot of artists. You are telling the world about a lot of artists. And it seems to me like Ottawa is in a bit of a boom right now. And part of it, I would say, is probably thanks to you creating the buzz. What do you look for when you're looking to profile artists?
I mean, first of all, it all comes down to the music, right? So it's like the music just has to have a certain sound. And a sound that's not just going to resonate here in Ottawa, but also a sound that's going to resonate like outside of this city. And I think that's kind of the difference. What I've noticed over time is, like, you know, when I first started kind of just following what was happening in hip hop, it was good music, but it wasn't necessarily music that was going to catch on outside the city. And I think right now, a lot of the music that's being created is music that people outside the city can actually consume and would want to consume. So that for the first thing is always just, is the music good? And the second thing for me is always just the professionalism. Like you can see how by how certain artists kind of just carry themselves. Like, artists who are on point with their press releases, people who are artists who are on point with like, their teams and whatnot. Like for me, I always look at the combination of just, do you have the music? Do you have the professionalism? Do you have the work ethic? And even the personal branding as well. Like especially in hip hop, like a part of just putting yourself together as an artist is, do you have your kind of your personal branding right? Like for me, when I look at someone, if I can't get your personal brand kind of right off the bat, I'm kind of like, okay, who are you? Like that's kind of the question I always ask is like, okay, who is this person? If I can't figure out who you are, like I'm kind of just like, I'll kind of just watch for a bit. But if I can look at you and the music is good, you're professional, you have the work ethic, and I'm like, there's just this persona about you that I think will connect with fans. Those are the kind of the things that I personally look for.
Yeah. I'd like to talk a bit about your background too, and how you sort of developed this skill or the experience to tell what's good. You run Shifter magazine. Are you from Ottawa originally?
I'm from Toronto originally.
Okay. How long have you been here?
How long has it been? It's been since I think 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
So over 10 years.
Yes, it's been a while.
Yeah. So I'd like to explore a bit, how has the Ottawa scene grown in your experience here in the last decade? Are you finding more artists to write about now in the magazine?
Yeah, like originally there wasn't as much, whereas now there's like a lot of there's a lot of artists I think that are actually moving at a professional level. Not only is the music good, but they're also just that I find the aspirations are bigger. Like for people before, it's just kind of like, okay, they were doing music and it was kind of a cool thing to do. Whereas now it's a real aspiration for people to actually like get out there and do this on a professional level. So I think that's one thing that's changed is people are like when you talk to people about where it is that they want to go and what it is that they want to do. You're just hearing bigger aspirations. Like people want to like, and also people just are feeling like they could stay here. Whereas before it was like it seemed like they couldn't wait to kind of get out. Whereas now people are like, nah, I'm good. Like I want to stay here. I want to build here. They see Ottawa as like a viable option for doing music.
Yeah. Role models. Are there people who are doing like who would be a role model for a young Ottawa artist? Who can they look to and say, that guy's doing it and they came from Ottawa, I can do it. I'm thinking of Belly, kind of.
Yeah, I think him, and I think Knight Lavelle's probably, because Knight Lavelle was the one who kind of did it off the internet. So I think for a lot of people, I think it seemed like Knight Lavelle's probably the example for a lot of people in the sense of like the blueprint of how to be based in Ottawa, but kind of blow up outside.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We should talk about his experience too. But while we're on the subject of artists staying or moving to Ottawa, let's throw it over to Hannah. Hannah, do you live in Ottawa?
Yes. Yeah.
Have you considered moving elsewhere?
I briefly moved to Montreal, but that was for school. And I actually moved back to Ottawa kind of for music. I had a band here and we were doing kind of like a long distance band thing for a while. And I just ended up being like, okay, like I don't like what I'm in school for and I want to go back to Ottawa and finish this EP. So I moved home and I've been here since then. I guess it's been like 2 years that I've been back. I was only in Montreal for like a year and a half.
Yeah. Okay. So you had the stability of life in Ottawa to work on your art.
Yeah.
And what about like the technical side of it? What about gear, recording gear?
Yeah, so I work with my best friend, who's also my producer, Michael Watson, and they've been producing music since they were like 12 or 13, just in just in lots of bands and been like a real champion of the local Ottawa music scene. And when it came to like my old band, we were like, oh, who will we get to produce our EP? And we were like, oh, Michael Watson, that's a good idea. And our relationship sort of just like blossomed from there. And they've worked on all of my stuff, like my latest EP, all of my singles. And we do everything from home. It's a bedroom studio. No, like nothing big and fancy. I've always been like intimidated, I guess, by really like technical equipment. Like I didn't know how to use like an interface until like a year ago. I didn't even know you could like buy one. And it's been really great like working alongside someone that gets the simplicity that I strive for, but also like I'm able to learn from them and learn how to do more of the technical stuff and like do it on my own.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. Nathan, why does Twotiime want to stay in Ottawa? What keeps him here? Community, probably.
Yeah, well, I would say for now, he's keeping his foot in the city. He's young in his career.
Pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic as well. He's just in his second year, starting his second year in his career. So, he has a long road ahead of him. A lot of his resources that he's grown to know are in the city because he's never been outside the city for anything musically. So, at the moment it's convenient for him, but we've had labels and we've had A&Rs and a few other, big artists reach out and stuff like that. And we do plan on, heading over to New York, heading over to LA, and just to see what other resources are available. But for now, he's over here to, continue to create and, do his thing here in the city for now.
Yeah. In your experience, visiting and living in other cities, how does Ottawa's music scene compare?
Well,
at the development level.
The development level, it's, like Kevin says, a lot of the artists, it takes time to see their creativity. It takes time to see how serious they are and their brand and, all that falls behind them. So with other cities now, it's, Toronto has been a little bit in front of Ottawa when it comes into like creativity and it comes to resources and stuff like that. Same with Vancouver. I would say Vancouver's a little bit in front of Ottawa as well. But, is Ottawa, on its last shreds? No, Ottawa has what it takes. It's more, I believe it could be more of a community thing. Artists need to believe in themselves, obviously a little bit more, and obviously step outside the box, because, the circle can only run so big in our city, right? So it's, something to give it thought for. But I know Ottawa, is not far off from any other city. When I was growing up, I used to go to Montreal for hip hop. I used to go to Montreal for the first, the King of the Dot battles out there. And look where the King of the Dots battles ended up shifting back over to Ottawa after the recent years, so, and I don't even believe they're really having King of the Dot battles out there anymore. So, a lot of things have been shifting towards, the city being the capital and being known as the capital. And I feel like it's just going to eventually even get better.
Great. Okay. Kevin, we're back to you. And I'd like to hear your perspective on Knight Lavelle and how he broke out of Ottawa. When did you first discover him?
I think it may have been like 3 years ago. I was at like a House of Paint meeting or something like that, and everyone was talking about Knight Lavelle, and I hadn't heard about him at that point. And so that was the first place where I kind of just heard about him, and then I kind of just went back and kind of did some research. But that was like the very first time I actually heard about him. There were just kind of like buzz happening in the city just about him.
So you caught that buzz.
Yeah, when enough people are talking about you, that's what people like. People have to be talking about you. Like if enough people are talking about you, then eventually you're going to be like, okay, I need to know who this person is, because enough people and a lot of the artists that I kind of catch wind of is because someone said, yo, you need to hear this guy, or enough people are talking about them to the point where it's like, you got to check them out too. So yeah, he was one of those people that I just kept hearing about. And then eventually, eventually, I kind of caught wind more of what he was doing. When it comes to, you asked about how he did it.
Yeah, like what are the like details? What's the nitty gritty?
I don't know, maybe Nathan might be better answering this one, but I think for me, it's just, I think his blueprint seems to just be the internet. Like I think it's SoundCloud, if I'm not mistaken, is where he kind of like, kind of blew up. And I think it was a European audience that he had, like a Russian audience. And then, I think he just kind of focused on serving that European audience through the internet, and then kind of went out there. I believe I know with all these platforms, like analytics is a thing, right? Like, where your streams are coming from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's SoundCloud or Spotify, like, what cities and countries you're having success in. So I if I'm not mistaken, I think just through streaming services, he knew that this is where my audience is coming from. And then just kind of, once he kind of served them with the music, then followed up with like the touring and heading out there and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And eventually it filters down to my 18-year-old son, who thought that Night Lavelle was Ottawa's only good rapper.
And I would say the good thing about him is like, he never stopped repping Ottawa, which is like, for a lot of people, a lot of artists who kind of get big, like they stop repping Ottawa. Like there's ones now that
the marketing.
So true, yeah, that's true. But yeah, so he's the one that like literally every interview. Like if he was doing an interview in Germany, he's doing an interview in Montreal, he's doing an interview in the States. Like at some point, Ottawa's coming up in the conversation. Like, and some people would say like, oh, Night Lavelle doesn't rep Ottawa. Like he does. Like every interview, Ottawa comes up. And he doesn't pretend he's from elsewhere. And I think that's part of the reason why he's had a certain level of success, and my people just they kind of follow him locally, is because he didn't give up on this city. He doesn't pretend to not be from here. And he's become a bit of like an ambassador for the city.
Great. Nathan, do you have some insight into Night Lavelle's trajectory as well?
I would agree with Kevin. Like, he basically came off of the SoundCloud era, and, he found his markets, and, he attacked them. And, one thing that, Night Lavelle has that's definitely standing out is, digital marketing. You know what I mean? His team is, in good response into that, and which led to him, I believe, he most recently just signed a deal with Rob Zombie, I believe. I don't know if you know that, Kevin. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think in February he finally signed like some kind of label deal, I think.
Yeah, so even from there, I've been noticing, he's all over more billboards now, and he's definitely stepping it up from his earlier ages, and from being in Ottawa. So I agree with Kevin on the majority of what he said is accurate. And I don't really have too much more to add on to that. I don't really follow him like that extensively. So
yeah, no worries. Thank you. I see we have a question here referring to new artists as young artists. Is there an age limitation? And does it depend on the genre of music you do, that if you're over a certain age, you shouldn't try? That is an age-old question, isn't it? I mean, I think the music industry from the Beatles and Elvis has been driven by young people, and never underestimate the power of the teenage girl fan base. Obviously, there's definitely not age limitation on being an artist in the Ottawa scene. I would say that some genres lend themselves more to young artists than others. You can certainly be a mature artist in jazz and blues and folk and classic rock and country. I suppose can you be a young artist in hip hop too? I mean, an emerging artist who's not young in hip hop? Kevin, what do you think?
I mean, hip hop, it has been historically a young person's game. What we're seeing now is, we're kind of seeing with Jay-Z, Eminem, Snoop, we're seeing people kind of age successfully in hip hop now. So it's not as much, I think that narrative's kind of being challenged, but I think it is still, at least in hip hop, it is still kind of a bit of a young person's game. But in other genres, like you said, like in other genres, like you can you can be a folk artist, you can be a rock artist and be 40 years old and still be good. There are examples of in the broader industry of like, people like the 2Chainz and the Freddie Gibbs who kind of hit their prime a little bit late. So I think it's never too late, I think, to kind of get out there as an artist. And also realizing too, like, you can still be a new artist and be older. Like, even when you look at award ceremonies and stuff, and the person who wins like best new artist, they technically have been around for like, some of them have been around for like 10 years, but they're new to the industry. Like they're new on that level. So being a new artist or a young artist, I think it's not necessarily, it's not necessarily an age thing to me per se.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hannah, can I ask how old you are?
Yeah, I'm 21.
Oh, so you are a young artist.
Yeah.
Yeah. How is this something that you've always wanted to do? Do you have insecurities about your age coming into the business?
A little bit. I think like I've always really, really loved music and always been like a huge champion of like the local music scene. And I was always making music kind of like secretly, and I felt very, very shy about it. And then when I went away to college, I was like, you know what? Like everyone started being like, oh, Hannah, when are you gonna play a show? Like you're at all the shows all the time. And it kind of just got to the point where I was like, okay, like I'm gonna do it. I'll finally play a show. But I really don't think that if you're like over a certain age, it's like too late for you. Like one of my favorite indie projects right now is Benny Sings, and he's like 45, and he's just making this like really amazing, upbeat, like kind of jazzy indie pop. And that stuff is like, it's fantastic. And I just think if the music is good, then that's really all that matters. If the music is good and you know how to like properly market yourself and like work in the sort of like online atmosphere, then I think you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just if I could add to that, I think it is about knowing your audience, right? Like,
Yeah.
Like, as I think it's like what Hannah's kind of getting to is like, is know your audience and serve your specific audience. So, I mean, yeah, if your audience, like, it just all, like, I think that's the key to success, is just being able to like know who your audience is and serve them specifically, no matter what your age is.
Yeah, I think that goes in the category of finding your niche. There's going to be a fan for all kinds of music out there somewhere in the world. And if you can find that corner pocket, even if it's only, say 10 fans in Canada, but if it's 10 fans in 100 countries, that's a pretty good go right there. Pretty good start. Okay, what shall we talk about next? Let me look at my notes here. I'd like to touch on the live aspect of building a career too, even though that seems so far removed from us right now. Playing shows, Hannah, you touched a bit on this too. Is that a good way? I mean, our sort of mission statement here is breaking out of Ottawa, but is playing shows in Ottawa a good way to launch yourself? What do you think? Hannah?
I think absolutely. Like, there's no harm in playing shows in your own city. And like, the more you show up, the more people are going to remember you. And I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't play shows in Ottawa, but for me, I've only played 2 shows in Ottawa because this project started and then the pandemic started right away. But I'm very, very eager to get back to doing it.
Hopefully there's some venues left.
Yes, that too. It would be great to see some more like mid-sized venues or small venues pop up in Ottawa. It's sad we lost a few of them during the pandemic. But yeah, you go out to shows and you meet lots of people and you make lots of great connections, and you never know who's going to be at a show. Like, you never know who's going to be at a show, and you should always just be open to talking with anyone that wants to talk to you, I think, because you never know what they'll have to say. Maybe they're not from Ottawa, maybe they're from LA for some random reason, and they're like, hey, you know?
Nathan, do you want to jump in here? What are your thoughts on the importance of the live show in one's own community?
Definitely, doing shows in your own city is important. Especially in the early stages of your career, it's good to, like I was saying, get that base in your city and then work your way out. If it's not working in your favor that way, you could, drop the record, your first song, and you have fans, like you said, 10 fans in other countries, right? So, it's good to definitely get your city behind your back and, do what you can, either from small shows or, connecting with myself or Shifter or Envy Magazine or promoters to, get yourself on an opening slot, or, Blues Fest is now offering local act spots. So, you can contact them as well. So it's definitely, it's definitely good to keep your shows in the city, definitely, and get some route going over here.
Yeah. Kevin, do you have some thoughts on that too?
Yeah, I think it's important, especially depending on what stage you're at in your career. Like, it's good to I think getting on local stages is good to practice your live show and whatnot, and kind of develop. I think if you're trying to build a financially sustainable career, you can't just be doing shows locally. Like, you need to actually get out and travel the country and travel travel to the States. So I think I think doing local shows is good in the sense of developing your craft and building a local fan base. But again, if you're trying to build this as a career and do it in a financially sustainable way and actually make income, then you need to tour, you need to get out. And I also say that even if you are doing a local show, invite the right people to your local show, right? Just don't do a local show for your friends. I don't think anyone's ever invited me to a show. Actually said, hey, yo, can you come? I'm doing a show. Can you come out? No one's, I don't know about Nate, but no one's invited me ever to a show. If I go, it's just that I decided to go, but no one's ever said, hey, can you come to my show? And I think if I was an artist, I'd be inviting Alan Neal from CBC. I'd be inviting me. I'd be inviting Nate. I'd be inviting, the people from Blues Fest. Those are if you're doing a local show, those are the people you want to invite. So that the show actually is going to give you some kind of return on investment and not just be you performing in front of your friends.
Yeah.
Even with throwing shows in Ottawa, there's struggles, even myself being a promoter, it's I could have the hottest artists I'm bringing in from out of town and the tickets are still not selling, or, there's artists that, want to perform that don't fit the bill, or, there's many other, it's different lanes to think about it. So it's, there's difficulties in all aspects, even from the promoter's side, so.
Yeah, promoters call Ottawa Heart Attack City because everybody waits until the last minute to buy tickets.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, I think you definitely should never be afraid to reach out to someone and ask them to come to your show, because what's the worst thing that's gonna happen? They're gonna say no. Oh no, that sucks. But the best thing that's gonna happen is they are gonna come to your show and they're gonna be like, wow, this is really good. And maybe they'll want you to do another show or do a radio spot or something. It just never hurts.
And those are the things that for me that actually impressed me. When someone has the I was gonna say the balls, but they have they have the guts to invite me to something, I'm like, oh, okay, that always strikes me as this person's serious.
Yeah.
When someone actually go say, hey, can you come to a studio session? Hey, can I play some music for you? Hey, can you come to this? When those are the things that stand out to me where I'm like, okay, this person's really trying to do something. So I think, people should always be asking, inviting people and whatnot.
Yeah, I get pitched by a lot of parents, I guess, because of my age group, on their kids' band. And, I love being on guest lists and I love going to shows, but it always bugged me that this person was bullying me about coming to see his son's band. So one day I got a personal message from the young guy in the band and said, we would be honored if you came and checked out our show. And I'm like, wow, I would love to see it.
Yeah.
So I went and it was fun.
I think I used to, I'd be really nervous to send those emails, and my dad would always be like, you have to send them yourself. I'm not going to ask someone for you. If you want to do something, you've got to do it yourself. And I think, that's true. If even any job you're working, if your parent comes in and hands in your resume, you're not going to hire them. Like, that's embarrassing. Like,
yeah, I don't mind connecting with the parents at the show.
yeah.
I don't want to be bullied into going to it. So we talked, I think, Kevin, you touched on algorithms a bit, which came up in a music industry story I did kind of at the end of the year. And I learned that, maybe you guys already know this, but I learned that major labels get all the numbers from everywhere. So they don't need to have scouts going around to every city now. They just keep track of the numbers, and when things start to bubble up, they'll express interest. And you know, I was talking before too about how a major label deal used to be, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 albums. Now you're lucky if you get a song. Like, let's release a song and see what happens. And it's all about the algorithms. And, you know, Tiage's story is interesting because he kind of hacked the TikTok algorithm by, you know, grabbing viral sound clips and making tunes out of them that then got picked up by the verified creators. So that's a really interesting strategy, I thought, is how can you get your numbers up? Did anybody have ideas on that?
You know,
Whether it's Spotify or SoundCloud or...
it all falls into, like, you know, your creativity. You know what I'm saying? Like, these days, you know, people, depending on if it's the younger generation, the older generation, everybody has their niche, what they listen to. Or, you know, the kids aren't listening to old school hip hop these days. The older heads aren't probably listening to the younger guys, or, you know, vice versa. So it's, you know, I don't know. It's kind of, you know, I'll maybe let Kevin touch on it a little bit.
Yeah, trust me, I don't even have the, like, I don't know. I think for me, I mean, nothing beats good music, I think, just to start with, because I think if your music's trash, like, I don't care what you do, like, you're probably not going to get good numbers at all. So I think that's the first thing. I still think networking is you know, pays off. Like, there's certain people who are just, they know the curators of the different playlists, and they've done that work of building those relationships. And then anytime they drop, they can hit up the curator and say, hey, you know, here you go. And I think ads too. Like, I mean, there's people that have had success running ads, whether it's on Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook, or Twitter, or whatever. So I think, you know, ads is another thing. Aside from that, like, trust me, I still haven't figured it out myself. So
yeah, it's, you know, everybody's still in that learning stage. You know what I mean? Even from, you know, working with Pressa, you know, there was multiple doors open. I was working with, you know, Northern Bars. I was working with Vice, Fader, XXL. You know, and now as things move on, now that I'm behind Twotiime, you know, let's say, you know, those companies, those platforms are still there, but, you know, the problem from, like, the management perspective is that, okay, the writers have now moved on. Since the writers have moved on, did we, you know, get a new contact over at this platform? Did they leave us a contact? So sometimes you're just left in the limbo. You don't know how to get a hold of them. Their emails deleted, and that's what happens. So in some cases, that's what happened, you know, with myself moving forward, you know, with XXL and a few other different publications. But with other ones, you know, they're kind of giving me the same indication, like a label, like, oh, you're managing Twotiime now. Okay, we're watching. We got our eye on you, type of thing. You know what I mean? So that's where they want to see his progress. They want to see, you know, back to what Kevin was saying, if you're serious about your brand and about continuing that on. Because that's, you know, there's 100 managers reaching out to writers. There's 100 artists reaching out to writers like yourself, even at the Ottawa Citizen, right? So it's, you know, you understand the you know, the part of, you know, being able to pitch, or, you know, reading a pitch in your email and understanding what you choose and what you want to work with. So it's kind of hard to, like, you know, like, I get 100 emails a day, you know. Well, first of all, I have to separate, you know, me managing Twotiime from Cap City, and Cap City from Twotiime. I have to separate it, because people will try to think just because I'm Cap City, that they're, you know,
Oh, yeah.
open, or that Twotime's involved, or just because I'm managing Twotiime that they're, you know, they're open to this at Cap City, but it doesn't work like that. You know, everything's separate, and they got to understand. And that's where it's a big part of reaching out. And, you know, a lot of artists over the years, you know, they either reach out to me, they're like, hey, I got some unreleased music, I want to send it over to you, I want to get your thoughts, or invite me to the studio or stuff like that. I won't lie, I was never really a guy to go to shows in the past like that, but I would probably send the media team. But I'm a more, you know, private guy. I like to, you know, send it to my email, take my own time, get into the studio. You know, I'm always in the studio. I'm in the studio right now. You know what I'm saying? And just, you know, taking in music on my own time, my own belief. And that's how I do things. So
yeah. So networking, playlists, maybe ads. What about video? That's pretty important these days. Hannah, do you have any videos?
I do have some videos. I just also wanted to add about like getting your numbers up. Yeah. I think learning how to use the DSPs, like the digital service providers, learning, like, Spotify really likes when you use all of their features to like the fullest. So they like if you've got the artist page set up, you've got your artist photo and the bio and everything, and you've got that before your first release is even out, and you have to email them for a code to be able to get the page before the release is out. But there are really, really great like master classes on Spotify for Artists and even online, just if you dig around, about really like how to use these platforms. And, you know, with Spotify, you pitch your song in Spotify for Artists 3 weeks before the song comes out. And I think, like, for getting on playlists, that's a really great way to get your numbers up, is to get on playlists. And they definitely read like a billion pitches a day. They read a lot of pitches. And when you're writing that pitch, you have to think about, like, how am I going to stand out from everyone else? How is like my song that's like also about heartbreak and love or whatever, you know, everyone's writing about a lot of the same things, but how is my song different, and how am I going to make myself stand out? So I think a lot of people go to write the pitches and they have like a level of professionalism that they think they have to be like super duper professional, but you can also really be yourself, you know, like Spotify wants to know that you're a real person, and they want to know that you have like a personality, and like people are going to want to listen to your music more than once. People are going to want to be recurring fans. And so I just think, like, yeah, definitely learning how to use the DSPs, like you were saying about contacting like playlisters. If you can find out, you know, who's doing the Lorem playlist or All New Indie, or who's part of like the Canadian team, reach out to them. Like, it really doesn't hurt. And playlists really can like do wonders for your for your numbers.
Wow, yeah, that's great. That's an opportunity that wasn't around when.
Yeah.
And to touch a little bit more on what you're saying in regards to DSPs, that I've been doing some research as well over the last year, and you know, I've been reading that even if you have a premium account, you know, that triggers the algorithm as well. So Spotify, SoundCloud, Audio Mac, you know, they're all into this algorithm now, where you can choose either a free account or a premium account. So now with the premium account, you have avenues and options to be able to pitch now to their playlist and to monetize and stuff like that, because SoundCloud now and Audio Mac are now monetizing as well. So those are two new, well, not new, but, you know, upgraded platforms for artists now to use. You know what I mean? So all those things, you know, fall into a factor. An email or connect or network with the curator of a playlist, by all means do it. But, you know, it's easier said than done, because everyone's trying to do it. Everyone wants to get in touch with a playlist curator, you know, so, you know, it's.
Yeah. We have a question here from Rolf from the Acorn. And he's touching on tastemaker blogs that have a significant influence at the ground level. Folks like Gorilla vs. Bear, Aquarium Drunkard, or Brooklyn Vegan. Can the panel speak to how they connect with these types of bloggers and whether it has an impact in their work? So there's the question right there. Do these influential tastemaker blogs make a difference?
Um,
Hannah.
yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I think a lot less people are reading press and blogs these days, at least like younger people, which is a shame, because like I like reading the blogs, I like reading the music reviews and everything. But I do think, though, they do definitely have an impact. And honestly, like, if you can get your name on like a best top 10 like best songs this month list, like that's great. And you can use things like Submit Hub, where you submit your song and you can submit it to small blogs or playlists, sort of like user curated blogs. And the more your name shows up on like a Google search result, the easier you are to find and the more people that are going to find out about you. So I think blogs definitely have like a big influence on that stuff.
Yeah, and Nathan, what's your experience? You've dealt with some of the like pretty high level outlets like Vice and stuff. Does that make a difference? I mean, it must make a difference, right?
Yeah, like I still get, like I was trying to pick up and focus more on being, a full-time publicist as the workload, entailed with working with Pressa. And, at that time, it was more, like I said, it was more of because of luck, timing, and, getting my foot in the door with Pressa, because he was an emerging artist being looked at. He had Drake behind him, he had The Weeknd behind him. So now all these blogs, from mini ones to major ones, wanted a cover, wanted a story, wanted an article. So that was the most convenient way for me to get my foot in the door, because we were all growing as a team at the same time. All these major publications want to talk to him in regards to Drake, The Weeknd, Meek Mill, blah, blah, blah. So that just gave us the right opportunity to, indulge and make the right connections and right network the way we did. So definitely, at that time, I would say, websites and, articles and stuff like that were really important. But now, as, from 2016, now we're into 2021, I would say a lot of the younger generation, they're more keened on to social media than into actually reading a full article or, newspaper or, so it's, it's hard to say, it's hard to say.
Kids these days.
I still go on the website,
Yeah.
So
Can you help us out here too? What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I would say I operate one. And for me, it's like, I think the blogs are useful in the sense that there's so much music out there that people don't have a time to go digging through like the amount of music. So they trust the ear of certain curators to be like, okay, like, if someone, like, even for us, like we have, like, it's labels come to our website, like radio stations. Like I have radio stations who interview people based on sometimes who we put on our website, because they're like, okay, these guys, like, we trust these guys, and if they say this person's hot, we should interview this person, right? So even if like the young people aren't necessarily the young people, I sound old, but even if like younger audiences aren't reading them, within the industry they still serve a purpose when it comes to curating things, because the people, again, whether you're radio programmers, your record labels, you don't necessarily have the time to dig through like all these different kind of things. So it serves a purpose in that sense. Like some people have said, like, bloggers are the new A&Rs. Whether you're whatever platform you operate, like, in a sense, like bloggers have become like the A&Rs and stuff. So yeah, I think they serve that purpose in that sense. When it comes to how to, I guess, relate to them or connect to them, like for me, I'm always for me, anytime I see a writer doing an article on someone, like say a big outlet that does an article on like black denim or something like that, immediately I reach out to the writer. Like I'm always kind of like, okay, who's writing about, who outside the city is writing about Ottawa people, and then I reach out to that person and be like, hey, you know what, just start building relationships. So I always look at like who's writing about who's writing about similar artists, that if I'm doing a PR for someone who's writing about similar artists, and then I'll just reach out to that writer and kind of build a relationship from there, because you probably won't get to the editor, but the writers still have a lot of like leeway to pitch articles to the editor, right? So it's like, even if you can't get to the editor, it's like getting to a writer who can then pitch that article to the editor is still valuable. So yeah, building, I mean, for me, I think building relationships with writers, especially people who are writing about Ottawa artists or people who are similar in a similar lane as you, is still beneficial.
Okay. Let's talk about videos now. Seems you need a video. You need one song and about, what, 10 videos for it? The lyric video, the animated video, the live video. Does that help a career? Does that help get your music out there? A splashy video. Nathan, what do you think?
Yeah, well, for example, if you're going to be dropping a single, you're going to be dropping a video, there's multiple ways you could do a rollout, for your campaign. What I've been seeing more and more is a lot of people, dropping their single on DSPs, dropping their video on YouTube, and then releasing a lyrics video or lyrics video beforehand or afterwards, behind the scene visual, and so on and so on. So it's, at the end of the day, it's just about, for them, I'm guessing it's about content and it's about monetization, because, when you're dropping 4 or 5 videos for the same song, if, like I said, if it's a behind the scene, if it's a lyric video, if it's whatever it may be, that all being monetized into one. So, these days, if you want to go that route with your brand and you want to have multiple, avenues of the same product, by all means, I'm not going to say no, but every artist is different. You know what I mean? You might not see that from an artist. You know what I mean? You might just see them drop an audio and drop a video and then they move on. You know what I mean? So it's all up to the artist, up to the brand at the end of the day. But yeah, I see it.
Yeah, I sort of disagree. I think you need a video now. And I know that like at the newspaper, we're always looking for things to enliven our website. And that was why I pitched a story on the growth of the music video in Ottawa last year. And the paper was really happy with that, because everybody wants video on their sites now, because that's where your eyes go to look. And they don't have to be huge, expensive productions, I'm told. A clever, low budget video, like what Colorado used to do, would do the trick. But yeah, I think video is super important. How about you, Kevin? What do you think?
I find for me, even just as a fan, like I connect more to songs when there's a video. I just find for me personally, like I could hear a song on someone's album and I'll be like, okay, that was cool. But then as soon as all of a sudden a video comes out, all of a sudden I'm like, I'm feeling the song even more than if there wasn't a video. So I find just for me as a fan, I like videos, and like it helps me to connect to a song more. Even when I want to play a song, like a lot of times I'll go to YouTube and play the actual video instead of just playing the song on Spotify, because like there's a certain energy that I can a song obviously translates a certain level of energy, but a music video can also translate a certain level of energy as well. So I think it's yeah, I think it's important. I think.
Yeah, I think it really helps to establish a brand, and
I think also you definitely don't need to have like $1,000 video. You can make them yourself. I mean, like I make all my music videos myself. And before this, I was making like music videos for just like local bands in the scene. And I agree, like when I hear a song, sometimes I'll be like, man, I really want to see the music video for that. And it's a really great way for people to be introduced to you. And also definitely like outlets, like news outlets, like when you have music videos, because it's kind of like an introduction to the artist. You don't need a music video for every song, you do, but it definitely helps. And also in terms of like, if you're going to run ads, it's a lot easier to run ads if you've got a music video to do music video cut downs from, for like TikTok cut downs, for even like using the Canvas feature on Spotify, which isn't like another feature they like for you to use. You can use part of your music video for that. So I just think having visuals just like adds to the creative brand, and really like is a showcase of what you want people to see like you as. You're like, this is my song and this is like how I would imagine it in my brain. This is, you know, get to know me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm seeing a question here too, from Troy Nielsen. Who, as an artist, writer, publicist, etc., I always struggled with the balance of effort for reaching out for press and radio play. When your established media reach to you for press, but when coming up, I'm wondering if record pools and DJ pools are still relevant. Does sending an email marketing campaign to local media, DJs, etc. work? Or is it better to focus on a small number and reach out personally? Hit and miss, eh? For me, I can tell you what I look for. I get email pitches from publicists around the world, and I look for the word Ottawa, and that's pretty much it. We're a local newspaper. We have people to cover international stuff. So I'm looking for interesting stories and good music from Ottawa.
I would say I'm not really into the mass marketing. So whenever I notice like it's a mass marketing email, I kind of like, I like the more personalized email to me, reaching out, getting my interest, you know, stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah. Kevin, what do you like when you get pitched? Do you get the mass?
Yeah, I agree with Nate. I don't love like the mass email thing. For me, I like professionalism and like, and just if someone provides like, I like complete like emails, like you need to make people's job easy. Like make my job easier. Like if you send something to me and I still have to ask you questions after, I'm like, that's too much work. Like because there's so much other stuff. So it's like if I have to chase you down for a quote after, or I still gotta like. But when I get something and all the information is there, I'm like, oh shoot, like this is like, okay, this person knows what they're doing. So just having complete, like giving someone all the resources and information they need, all the photos, like I don't have to chase you down for a high res photo after everything is there. I'm like, oh cool. Like literally that'll take me like 30 minutes to put something together. Let's go. You know, so that is, and also too, it's like, you got it's a full package, right? It's like you want to look at someone and be like, man, like everyone wants to discover someone new, right? So it's like if I get something and it's like, yo, this is an up and coming person that everyone needs to know about. It's like you got to tell your story properly. Like most people don't tell their own story properly, so it's kind of like, and like I've heard this already, but yeah. Anyway.
Also, too, I'd say like, you know, when it comes to like, you know, email marketing, blasting and campaigns, like a lot of artists or labels, managers, they need to know the difference between, you know, sending out a newsletter compared to a pitch. Because, you know, you can't, in my eyes, I've never used a service to pitch to a writer. You know, I've always reached out from my personal email or a personal email. So in my eyes, I don't see that being effective, you know, because you're doing a mass mad mommy email to 100 writers. And when you're that writer looking at that email, it's not specified to you. So it's like, that's just how I feel, you know. I could be wrong, you know, that's just my opinion. But
I sometimes like finding that nugget of an Ottawa connection in a mass email. So I do read everything pretty much, not everything, but okay, so we're closing in on the home stretch here, about 20 minutes to go. And I'm thinking maybe we could end on the idea, what does Ottawa need for Ottawa artists to break out on a broader level? Another thing I meant to mention earlier is, you know, if you're set on worldwide domination in the pop sphere, you're probably going to need a major label because they have people in all the markets. So we don't have major labels really in Ottawa. I mean, we have a few reps, but what would make the job of getting there a bit easier from here? I have a suggestion. I think that publicists, we need more publicists in Ottawa. There's, you know, hundreds of publicists across Canada. Very few of them are in Ottawa. Most of the ones I see about Ottawa bands are actually from a Toronto publicist, which at first kind of made me think, oh, wow, you know, like this band got this attention from this big time Toronto publicist. So maybe I should listen to them. But I think he's on to me now. So I think he just takes on Ottawa artists so that I might write about them. And you know, as I was saying in the beginning, my workload is so spread out across all the arts right now. I definitely do not write as much as I would like to about Ottawa artists. But maybe that's another thing too. Maybe we need a specifically Ottawa blog or playlist or newsletter or something like that. Let's, anybody got some thoughts?
Well, at the end of the day, the resources are there. They've always been there. Like Cap City Hip Hop has been around for 10 years. Shifter Magazine's been around. We also have Envy Magazine, Hip Hop Canada. They're the owner and founder. They reside in Ottawa as well too. You know, Dutchie's a good homie of mine as well.
Yeah, so maybe that's why the hip hop scene is really starting to gain steam right now, because we have that sort of infrastructure in place for several years.
You know, but then, you know, it falls back into like, you know, there's a lot of pride in our city, okay? And, you know, that falls into like, you know, him not wanting to reach out to him or him not wanting to work with her or whatever the cause might be. Yeah, that's first of all got to stop. You know what I mean? That's got to get thrown out. We got to come together more as a community. And, you know, I'm not saying like, because this artist is hot and this artist is hot that they have to work together, but you know what I mean? It's more in the back end of supporting each other. And, you know, guys like, you know, myself and Kevin and other blogs and media and publicists getting together and, you know, doing these type of panelists, you know, stuff like that, you know, it's just what's going to help grow the city. And, you know, I know I'm working with some A&Rs, you know, from Universal, Sony, you know, Capitol. And, you know, they've mentioned a few other Ottawa rappers that, you know, they're like, oh, what about this guy? Do you know him? Or, you know, keeping their eyes on him. So, you know, the eyes are on Ottawa. It's just a matter of time until, you know, more artists start getting, you know, what they deserve. And also too, you know, I'm not the one to go out and say full front that it's happening, but, you know, from what I'm seeing is that a lot of the DSPs, a lot of the, you know, the curators are only putting on a lot of the hottest Toronto acts. You know what I mean? And the ones that they're putting on from Ottawa are only the hottest acts that are signed to a label, aka Belly, Night Lavelle, and now Dax and Tiago. You know what I mean? Now they're starting to get more in-depth shine, in-depth play, more look. But I'm noticing, okay, they're signed to a label. What about the guys that are not? You know, what about the guys that are, you know, getting gold and millions of views, streams, American publications, co-signed from Americans? What are they getting? And that's what, you know, as my job, that's what I'm going to be trying to break into, and, you know, trying to break into more forcefully into the Toronto markets with my network and stuff like that. So that's what I believe would help our city push a little bit more forward.
Hannah, what do you think the city needs?
That's a good question. I think, at least in my opinion, like young people are really like, they want to champion music. They want to go out to shows, and they're like a lot of the time the ones that are going to be posting on TikTok, they're going to be posting on Instagram, they're going to be posting online about, you know, this great band they've just seen. And I think I wish there was more music venues, and I wish it was
and more all ages too.
Yeah, and more all ages for sure. Like when I was in high school, I could go to Gabba Hay, and I could go to like Press, but I couldn't go to any shows at like House of Targ or, you know, Zapod's or anything like that, especially even when I wanted to go like so badly. And I think, yeah, we need to make more all ages venues. There needs to be more venues in general. And it's kind of like all the venues are kind of downtown Golden Triangle area. And it's hard for kids from like Canada who love music, or kids from Orleans, to get out to these shows. Like, how can we make it more accessible for more people to come out to see these shows? And I know for me, like I went out, I saw these cool like girl punk bands at GRAVELLE, and I was like, wow, you know, I could do that. But if I hadn't been able to go to those, I would have never even like thought of the idea that I could start a band. And yeah, I just think young people are ready to champion music. People in Ottawa are ready to champion music, and there just needs to be more places to see it.
Yeah, I remember, well, you probably before your time, but the Tulip Festival used to have a big stage and had like a whole day of local bands. And it was so interesting to see these bands that really only played clubs. And this swarms of young people would show up to see them. I always liked watching that phenomenon. And it was
sorry, I just saw a comment about accessible for different body-abled people and people who can't afford tickets, like all ages. I think something we've seen with the pandemic is a lot of shows being online, a lot of live stream opportunities for shows. And I think it would be really honestly fantastic if we could keep this up, because like I'm disabled and I know that, you know, you can't always get to the basement venue. People in wheelchairs like can't always get to the DIY venue. We need to build more accessible venues for all sorts of different people, and even possibly offer like a live stream option. If you can't get to the show physically, here we will live stream it. We will, you know, do sound, and you can buy a ticket and you can watch that way. I think there have been so many, it's been eye-opening like how accessible we can make things for everyone in the pandemic. And it would just be an absolute shame if that did not continue. You know, things going back to normal, things aren't going to go back to normal for everyone.
Right. Kevin, you want to bring it home here? What does Ottawa need?
For me, I think it's just more collaboration. And I think Nate kind of touched on that, but I think more collaboration, like for any scene to become a scene, like the collaboration is important. That's why you look at Toronto right now, like Toronto should be rivaling Atlanta right now. What's killing them is lack of collaboration. What made Atlanta as a smaller city, like Trump, New York, and LA, was collaboration. Like they're not, and people aren't threatened by each other. Like producers aren't threatened by each other. Like the older generation of rappers and younger generation of rappers in Atlanta, like they're not beefing. Like they're not threatened by the next guy coming up. They're like, as long as their city is winning, they don't seem to care. And for me, I'd love to see that, where people just start to collaborate. Like there's so many collaborations in our city that needs to happen, even musically. Like you see what happened when Night Lavelle and Linda's son and FTG Reggie got on a track. It was like, and they dropped a video. Like for me as a fan, I was like, yo, I was on cloud nine. And there's so many collaborations in our city that haven't happened. And those are things that get the attention of the wider industry. When they see that, when you see you starting to like, they see that kind of talent just kind of simmering and people are collaborating, jumping on tracks with each other, whether it's producers, artists, and all that kind of stuff. Like that's the stuff that makes a city pop, right? And again, we're seeing Atlanta do that. Like, you know, and getting to a point. I think also we have to get to a point where we stop caring about what other people think, man. Like you look at even London right now. Like London doesn't care about what anyone thinks outside of London. Like we're London and we make music for London, and London is hot and we don't care. You know, and Atlanta's the same way. They're just kind of like, we're doing what we do. And if other people notice, whatever. And I think we have to have that kind of self-pride. I think in Canada, we care too much about what everyone else outside thinks, or what everyone outside of our city thinks, what people outside of our country thinks. It's like, nah, like we need to just have our own sound, have our, like, care what we think, collaborate amongst ourselves. And if people, like, eventually people will notice, you know. But I think there is too many egos. Like people don't want to jump on tracks with each other. It's like, oh, it's going to hurt my personal brand, and it's going to, like, all this kind of garbage of why they're not collaborating. It's like, yo, like I guarantee you, if right now people really started like going crazy collaborating artistically, 1 to 2 years, like you're gonna see people outside the city be like, man, like something's happening in Ottawa, you know. But when everyone's kind of just doing their own thing and no one's talking to each other, like that hurts things.
Yeah. Who's your dream collaboration right now? Who would you like to see team up?
I was talking, well, since Nate's here, I was talking to Linda Sin the other day. He said that him and Twotiime have something. They've done some stuff, so that's something. Oh. But those are people. Romeo Don't Die and Salem, I'd love to see do something. Like honestly, there's so many, man. Like there's so many that I would just love to see, like, just in a video together. Get a whole bunch of Ottawa people in the music video, man. Just having a good time. Like I don't know. There's a whole bunch of collaborations, man.
Well, I'll fall into that. Sorry, Kevin. You know, a lot of that too falls into timing too, as well. You know what I mean? You know, it's, you know, maybe one artist is ready and the other artist isn't. You know,
That's
I know Twotiime is really young, and you know, he just turned 19, and for him turning 19, I have to educate him a lot on, you know, artists in the city and who they are, how long they've been rapping or doing their thing, and so on and so on, because you know, he's fairly new to the game. So for artists like that, you know, to have an artist that's been around for 10 years to reach out to Twotiime, and Twotiime says, let's say, for example, might say no or never heard of him, da, 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 they might take it like an insult and get mad. But that's the wrong way to do it, because it's not like you're walking in Kevin Lyle's office and you're gonna sit there and get mad at Kevin Lyle's. You know, you got to think of it as the bigger perspective. You know, you got to know who you're talking to and know that, you know, you got to keep it professionally on all levels. Like, the emotions don't fly in the music industry, and that's a problem in Ottawa, and that's what needs to be a little bit lowered down, and the pride a little bit lowered down as well, so that more, you know, more things can collide and happen.
Great. All right. Well, this has been really good. Thank you very much, people. Do we have any more questions that I need to look at? I think I got everything along the way.
I can jump in here now and just end the panel. I just want to thank all of you for being here, and you, Lynn, for moderating, and Nathan and Kevin and Hannah. Thank you for being such fantastic panelists. This was so interesting. We've learned so much. We've really learned so much through all the panels over the last 2 days, and are so excited to have been able to have you all here sharing your knowledge. Next up, we have our party in the Gather Space at 6 to 7 p.m. being DJ'd by Nathan Gravelle, holding up the Megaphono tote bag right now, repping Megaphono. It's going to be super fun. And then after that, we have our last showcase at 7:30 p.m. featuring a set from Sidani, a comedy short from Sarah Hennessy and Allison Johnston, set from Hannah, fanclubwallet, so excited. And then ending with a set from Cadus Weapon. It's going to be great. Hope to see everyone there. All the info on the MEGAPHONO.CA if you're missing it. Have a great day, everyone, and hope to see you later.
Nice meeting you guys.
Bye. Thank you.
See you later, Hannah.
Megaphono. Hey, yo, come on, you made this shit right here. It's Wednesday, May 26th. Welcome to Megaphono.